Hey guys, welcome back to Skill Curve. Have a look at this head volleyball game. Well, I built this game within no time, all with the help of AI and without any knowledge of coding. I used Rosebud AI, which is a game maker that only uses prompts to generate a game for us. So basically, you don't have to do anything apart from directing it about your gameplay. And this tool is completely free and even allows you to publish your game so you can share it with your friends and play it anywhere you want. And by the way, if you're a programmer and interested in the code of the game, well, it provides you with the code as well, which you can run locally on your computer. I'll show you that in the end of this video as well. Then, in addition to this tool, I used Leonardo AI for generating game assets like players, football, netball, and stadium. And this tool is completely free as well. I'm gonna walk you through the whole process without skipping any step so you don't have to worry about anything. Now without any further ado, let's dive in. First of all, you will have to visit their official website and click on this button right here. Here you will find different games made by the community members. You can simply clone one of these and further customize it. Or if you have your own idea, then you can go to these templates and choose one of them based on your interest. Now since I wanted to generate a 2D game, so I selected the 2D playground and clicked on create game. So this is the interface that we will be using to create our game. It is pretty simple. We have got a chat tab here where we will put in our prompts and the Rosebud AI will generate the code for us. The code will be stored in this section and changes made here will be reflected in this game screen. Then we have got the assets tab where we will find all the assets to be used in our game. We can upload one from our local computer or make use of Rosebud AI to generate any image for us. We can put in our prompt here and select the styling from here, then simply click on submit and the image will be produced. Now I'll show you how to create a game. Since I have already built the head volleyball game, so I'll explain further through that project. So I'll go to my projects. These are all of the projects that I've been working on. I'll simply select the head volleyball. So this is my final game which I got as a result of all these different prompts. I'll go through each one of them so that you know the whole process. First of all, I simply asked Rosebud AI to build a 2D head volleyball game for me. She was smart enough to understand the gameplay and came up with these following changes. She added the assets for the ball, player 1 and player 2, then loaded those assets, created the physics objects for both players and the ball, added controls, added collision detection, and even added a simple scoring system. Then she simply asked me to replace these placeholders with my images. So I was supposed to add my own assets and then change these links with my own links in the code. So I came to the code and clicked on apply button, then click to run changes. And this was the basic version of the game that I got. These were my players and this was my ball. I was able to control my players move left and right and they were able to collide with the ball and a simple scoring system was added as well. Now it was time to look at each of the feature individually and step by step. First, I decided to add my own assets. To generate images for my players, I headed towards Leonardo AI. Leonardo AI is an AI tool which comes with all these different features. However, we will only use the image generation. This is the image generation tab. You will find all these different parameters and a prompt section here. I selected the aspect ratio of 3:2 and gave it a prompt of 2D cartoony Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo facing each other having a head bigger than the rest of the body and then clicked on generate. And this is the image that I got exactly as I wanted. Then I clicked on this button to remove the background and I got two versions of this picture, one the original and one without background. I selected the one without background and clicked on download. Then I cropped the image once for Lionel Messi and then for Cristiano Ronaldo. You need to make sure that you don't leave any extra space within the image. Otherwise it will affect the collision. Make sure that it just fits the character. In this way I got this image of Lionel Messi and this image of Cristiano Ronaldo. Then I went to the assets tab, clicked on upload asset, dropped the image of Lionel Messi, clicked on upload asset again and dropped the image of Ronaldo as well. And both my players were ready. Then to generate an image of the football, I simply used Rosebud AI instead of Leonardo AI. I typed a ball here and selected the cartoony style and clicked on submit. And this is the image of the ball that I had got. Now that my assets were ready, I headed back to the chat and looked for these placeholders in my code. I found them here, so I went back to the assets, copied the URL for player 1, went back to the code and replaced it with player 1's placeholder like this, then went back to the assets again, copied the URL for player 2, went back to the code, replaced it for player 2 as well, went back to the assets again, copied the URL for the football, went back to the code and replaced this one as well. Then I went back to the Rosebud AI and told her that I have replaced the placeholders. She came up with the updated code and I clicked on apply button, then clicked to run changes, and my assets got added successfully, as you can see for yourself, but they were like so huge. So I asked Rosebud AI that the players and the ball are huge, make them smaller. She came up with this updated code and I clicked on apply, then clicked to run changes. She came up with this result, so I told her to make the players a bit larger. Then I clicked on apply, and now my players and the ball were of the size as I wanted them to be. After that, I told Rosebud AI about my controls to control the player. She came up with this code and I clicked on apply button. Then I was able to control my players with the keys that I had selected. However, I observed that they were not able to jump. So I told Rosebud AI that the players aren't able to jump, and she came up with this code and I clicked on apply button. Well, they were still not able to jump, so I told her that they are still not able to jump, and she came up with the updated code and I clicked on apply button. And now my players were able to jump and move in the air. But I wasn't satisfied with the jump as it was way higher and the gravity was like so low. So I told her to make the jump a bit realistic and increase the level of gravity and decrease the height of the jump. She came up with this code and I clicked on apply button. Now the jumps seem more realistic and I was okay with that. And now it was time to add a net to the game as well. For the image of the netball, I followed the same steps as I did for the player. I generated it with Leonardo AI, then cropped the image to just fit the netball and then added it to my assets folder here. Then I clicked on the insert button and removed to the scene with please add this image as a net. She came up with this code which I simply applied to my project, and the net pool got added, but it went straight to the ground, which I didn't want to happen. So I told her that the net goes into the ground and then isn't visible anymore. She came up with the updated code and now the pole was stuck in the air. So I told her about the problem again and she came up with the updated code which I applied to my project. And the position issue got resolved. Now it was time to increase the size of the pole so that it matches a net. So I told her to make the pole 4 times its current size. She came up with the updated code which I simply applied to my project. And now the size was perfect. Now the thing was that the players and the ball were able to pass through the net, making my net useless. So to solve that, I told her to make the pole a physical object and not allow anything to pass through it. She came up with the updated code which I applied to my project. And now the net was acting as a real physical object, not allowing anything to pass through it. However, there was a problem. As you can see, there was a gap between the net and the football, but the ball was still stuck here. It seemed as the net occupied more space than its physical appearance. So I asked her that the pole is covering a large area in addition to its original size. Please fix that. She came up with the updated code and told me to adjust these numbers in my code by myself to match the visible part of my net image. So I looked for this statement in my code. I was able to find it here. So after multiple hit and try, I was okay with the size of 30 and 80. Then I clicked to run changes and now the problem got resolved. Now it is occupying exact space as its physical appearance. And now it was time to update the background as well. So I headed to Leonardo AI, selected the aspect ratio of 16:9 and gave it a prompt of cartoony volleyball ground with crowd for using as 2D game background and clicked on generate. And this was the image that I got. It seemed pretty cool to me, so I went along with it. Then I added it to my assets the same way as I added my other characters, then clicked on insert button and replaced to the scene with please add this image as a background image. The Rosebud AI got confused a bit, thinking that I wanted her to generate the image. So I clicked on I didn't ask for a new asset and then she came up with the updated code. I applied it in my project and the background got added. Now it seems pretty cool and giving a certain game look. However, my image wasn't covering the whole screen. As you can see, there are black parts at the top and the bottom. So I told her to zoom in on the background a bit so that the black edges at the top and bottom are covered. She understood my concern and came up with the updated code, which I simply applied to my project. and the black edges got removed. Now it was giving a better look. Now that the basic physical appearance of the game got resolved, it was time to get into motions of the game. So I decided that the ball should be thrown at one of the players instead of here. So I told her that throw the ball towards one of the players at the start of the game. She came up with the updated code which I simply applied to my project, and she was able to understand my concern and did as I told her. After that, I observed that the bounce of the ball from the head wasn't high enough. So I told her that the bounce of ball from player's head is very less. Increase the bounce so that the player is able to hit the ball across the net. She came up with the updated code, but that actually didn't seem to work. So I told her again that it is still not bouncy, please increase that. She came up with the updated code and it didn't work as well. So after a series of prompts and telling her about the problem within the game again and again, she was finally able to generate the right code for me. So I applied that to my project, and finally the bounce was high enough to cross the net. However, there seemed to be issue with the reflection of the ball. As you can see, the ball was touching the head as it is touching some flat surface. So to make it more realistic, I told Rosebud AI about the whole situation and she came up with the updated code which I simply used in my project. She was able to understand my concern and did exactly as I told her. Now as you can see, the ball moves forward when it touches the forehead. And now it was time to look into the problem of points. As you can see, the points get incremented when the ball touches the wall or the net instead of touching the ground. So I described the problem in detail to Rosebud AI and she came up with this code which I used in my project, but there seemed to be an issue with it. So I told her about it and she came up with the updated code, but that didn't work as well. So I kept telling her about the problem with the code and what needed to be improved, and she came up with better and better code until my issue of score was finally resolved. So I used that code in my project. Now as you can see for yourself, score doesn't get increased when it touches the net or the boundary wall, it only gets increased when it touches the floor. However, you might have observed that it doesn't touch the floor completely. So I told her that the point gets incremented when the ball hasn't touched the ground completely. Please fix that. She came up with this code which I used in my project, but that didn't seem to work as well. So I told her about the problem again and she came up with the updated code, but that didn't seem to work as well. So it came up with the updated code again and finally the issue got resolved here. So I applied the changes to my project and now the score only increased when the ball almost touched the ground. So that's exactly what I wanted. After that, I wanted to change this initial projectile motion of the ball. I wanted it to be a bit slow and headed towards the player's head, and I wanted it to be thrown towards the player who scores the point. So I told Rosebud about the movement of the ball, she came up with this code, and then I told her to throw it towards the player who scores the point, and she came up with this code which I applied to my project. And now the throws movement was exactly as I wanted and it was being thrown towards the player who scored the point. Now that the mechanics of the game got taken care of, it was time to further refine the game. So I told Rosebud that when one of the players scores 3 points, the game should stop and the winner should be displayed prominently along with restart button. She came up with this code, but it seemed to have an issue. So I told her about the problem and she came up with the updated code which I applied to my project. And now when one of the players scored 3 points, the game ended and a restart option appeared, which works as well, as you can see. Then I decided to add sound effects to the game as well. So I downloaded a football kick sound from the internet, then I moved to the assets and uploaded a file here. This is the sound that I downloaded. Then I clicked on insert button and replaced to the scene with this text. Please add this sound when the ball hits the player. She came up with this code which I applied to the project. And now I was able to hear the ball hit sound when the ball touched the players. Then I decided to add music to the game as well. So I downloaded one from the internet, then moved to the assets and uploaded it here. This is the music that I downloaded. Then I clicked on insert button and replaced to the scene with my text. Please add this sound as a background music. There should be a button in top left corner which will be used to play and pause the music on toggle. She came up with this code which I used in my project, but there seemed to be an issue. The music actually stopped when the game got over. So I told her that it shouldn't be like that. She came up with the updated code and I used that in my project. Now I was able to toggle the music on and off with this button. After that, I asked Rosebud AI to display the score in center so that it is more obvious. After that, I asked her to increase the player size slightly, and yeah, this cool effect that I generated. I asked her to make the players squeeze a bit when they hit the ball for better user experience. And this is the code in which she generated, implementing all the three changes. Now as you can see, when the ball hit the player's head, it produced this jiggly effect which seemed pretty cool. After that, I wanted to implement the volleyball's 3-touch rule. So I explained that to her in detail and she came up with this code. But the code had actually some problems. So I told her about the problem, but it was still not as I expected. So I kept telling her about the problem again and again until finally she was able to get the right code for me, which I applied to my project. And with that, as you can see, the 3 points representing the 3 touches got added. And once the player did more than 3 touches, he would lose the point. After that, I told her to display this message in small size on top of the screen. First to score 3 points will win. However, I later made her change the message to first to score 3 wins, and she did. After that, I told her to add small touches text on top of dots representing the touches, and she came up with this code which I applied to my project. And now as you can see, the message is being displayed and the touches text is also there on top of the dots. But there was an issue, as you can see. The text was being overlapped. So I told Rosebud to make the music on and off button smaller and make it appear in the extreme bottom right corner instead of top left. So she gave me the code which I applied to my project. And now the music button was here. But I wasn't satisfied with this text button. I wanted it to be some icon button instead. So I downloaded 2 buttons, one for music on and one for music off. And then I moved to the assets and uploaded both of them here. Here are my 2 music icons, one for music on and one for off. Then I simply clicked on insert button and replaced to the scene with this text. So the prompt became, please add this image instead of music on text. So she came up with this code which I applied to my project, but the icon was huge in size and not in the corner. So I told her to make the music image even smaller and slide it towards the corner. So she came up with the updated code, but it was still not small enough. So I told her again, and this was the final result that I got. Now the icon was as I expected. Now it was time to change the image when the music was off. So I went to the assets and for no music I clicked on insert button and the prompt became, please add this image when the music is off instead of music image. So the Rosebud AI came up with this code which I applied to my project, but that didn't work as expected. So I told her about the problem and explained how the toggle should work. So she came up with the code again, but that had issues as well. So I kept telling her about the problem and she kept coming up with better and better code until finally the issue got resolved. So I applied those changes to my project and now the toggle was working as I expected. And with that, my game was finally complete and it seemed pretty cool to me. It was like an achievement for me because for someone with zero coding knowledge, just look at this game, man. I actually found it very interesting and even made further changes to this game. Let me show you my final most result. This is what I came up with. I changed my characters and the background and even the font styling. Well, let me play this game in front of you for a while. It's pretty addictive, to be honest. Now that my game was finally ready, I clicked on publish and was able to share the game with anyone by simply sending them this link right here. Now to run this game locally on your computer, the process is really simple. It actually makes use of JavaScript programming language. So what you have to do is simply go to one of your local directories. Once here, create a new folder. I'll name it as header game. Then open it with VS Code and create HTML and JavaScript files here. I'll name it as index.html and for JavaScript, I will name it as game.js. The JavaScript file will include the code from Rosebud AI. So go to Rosebud AI, select the whole code and copy it. Then go back to your VS Code and paste it here. Then save the file. As for the index.html file, you just need to write the basic HTML structure having only this div right here where your game will be rendered. And you will need to import these 2 JavaScript files as well. This one is your JavaScript file from Rosebud AI, while this one is from the Phaser. The Phaser is actually a JavaScript framework for building HTML5 games, and the code which the Rosebud AI generated for us makes use of it. So it has to be included in your file. And to download the Phaser framework, you need to open your command terminal and run this command. Once it is downloaded, your game will be ready. Now that we are all set, let's run the project. And here is our game. So with that, we were able to run our project locally on our computer. So just like that, you can build any game by simply telling Rosebud AI about your game idea, then keep refining the game until you come up with all the features of your desired game. Rosebud AI may not come up with accurate results the first time you ask her for something, so you will have to ask again and keep asking until it does give the accurate results. However, this tool is built specifically for gaming, so it is pretty good at understanding your concern and it gives pretty good results with just a few prompts. So with that, I'll conclude this video for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to press like if you liked the video and subscribe the channel to stay updated with the AI trends.